want you to hit me as hard as you can.
Welcome back to another episode of The Best Movie You Never Saw, and this week we're taking a look at legitimately, if you've never seen this movie, really is the best movie you never saw, William Friedkin's classic To Live and Die in LA, probably one of the best action movies of the 80s that, unfortunately, a lot of people haven't heard of. So in this one, William Petersen, long before he ever showed up on CSI, plays a Secret Service agent who becomes obsessed with avenging his partner's death at the hands of a ruthless counterfeiter played by an impossibly young Willem Dafoe, no matter what the cost, even as the line between criminal and cop becomes blurred. Now, I know what you're thinking. Sounds like every other cop movie of the 80s, right? Well, this one happens to be directed by William Friedkin in high style. And in addition to William Petersen and Willem Dafoe, the movie also co-stars Dean Stockwell, who is just a few years away from an Academy Award nomination for Married to the Mob, and John Pankow, who later on would show up on Mad About You, who's kind of the second lead in this. Notably, the music is by 80s synth duo Wang Chung. To Live and Die in LA was director William Friedkin's long-awaited return to the cop genre. After all, he was the guy who directed The French Connection, which, of course, is usually considered the greatest cop movie of all time. In the years following its success, he had his ups and downs, with The Exorcist definitely a big up, becoming one of the biggest hits of all time up to that point. But then he had a follow-up movie called Sorcerer, which crashed and burned at the box office, helped in no small part to the fact that it opened the week after a little movie you might have heard of called Star Wars.
I find your lack of faith disturbing.
His follow-up was a film called The Brink's Job, and it's generally considered a minor effort, and Cruising, another cop movie, but not really, was blasted as homophobic by critics, with Al Pacino in the movie going undercover in leather bars to stop a serial killer. Yes, it hasn't aged well, but I do think it's of some fascination in the community. Friedkin himself has said that he never intended it to be homophobic, but I mean, you watch the movie and you wonder. So you could imagine how dire things were for Friedkin at the time by noticing that his follow-up to Cruising was a bad Chevy Chase comedy called Deal of the Century. Friedkin put everything on screen in To Live and Die in LA. I think he knew that this was his last grasp at regaining his former glory, and it shows. Working within the confines of a limited budget, he cast the film with a totally unknown leading man, William Petersen. Plus, he put in Willem Dafoe as the baddie, who was just coming off of Streets of Fire, and hired synth-pop band Wang Chung to do the score. And it was Wang Chung, meanwhile, before they did Dance Hall Days, so they weren't especially well-known either. This was pretty bold for what was considered a comeback movie. I'm sure that he was tempted to cast an established star in the William Petersen role, or at least in the John Pankow role, but he stuck to his guns and cast Petersen, who was just coming out of the Chicago Steppenwolf Theater. Overall, the critical reaction to the movie was surprisingly muted, with many noting similarities between it and Miami Vice, although Roger Ebert loved it.
What kind of paper we talking about?
It did okay at the box office, making about $17 million, which was well over its budget, but it wasn't anywhere near as big as it should have been. However, it did give Friedkin a little bit of his credibility back, and eventually in the 90s he'd really turned things around with a slew of hit movies. Of course, he had flops like Jade, which I think is actually not a bad movie at all, but he would eventually come back with the re-release of The Exorcist, Rules of Engagement, and some highly regarded TV work. Now, To Live and Die in LA, to me, is one of the great cop films, although they're not really cops, they're US Secret Service agents. Whatever preconceptions you have of the genre going in, Friedkin's gonna turn them around. William Petersen's Secret Service agent seems like a stylish hero in the vein of Don Johnson's Sonny Crockett, but underneath his cool exterior beats a heart of stone, with him ruthlessly exploiting everyone that crosses his path, from his love interest / informant, played by the late Darlene Flugel, to his rookie partner, played by John Pankow.
What would you do if I stopped giving you information?
I'd have your parole revoked.
He may say that he's trying to avenge his partner's death, but it's really just a chance for him to chase a rush, all of which makes him utterly unique as the lead. You see, in the movie, his character always likes to risk death. That's how he gets his kicks. We're introduced to him as he foils a terrorist atop of a hotel in a really reckless manner.
Right there, fella!
And his second introduction is him bungee jumping off of a bridge. He, in some ways, is chasing death throughout the entire film. Interestingly, the movie is set at Christmas time, although you'd really never know it if it wasn't for the dates that are ticking by on screen. There are no decorations anywhere in the background. In fact, the only time you can actually see anything even vaguely Christmas-like is in a deleted scene that's on one of the Blu-rays. Technically, the film is absolutely impeccable with high-gloss lensing by Robbie Mueller, who was just coming off of Wim Wenders' Paris, Texas. Plus, it also had chic 80s production design, and that Wang Chung score really works well in the film. I understand that many people may think that the score dates the movie, and I'm sure in the 90s maybe it seemed like that, but it's a movie about the 80s. The Wang Chung score really sets it in that era, and it's actually a top-shelf synthesizer score with some really good songs, including Wait and the theme song To Live and Die in LA. If you listen during a strip club scene, you could even hear Dancehall Days in the background. Altogether, it adds up to one of the sharpest thrillers of its era, and one that I never get tired of watching, but I could see why the studio was freaked out about this film. After all, the hero's not very heroic, and his ultimate fate was controversial enough that there's actually a reshot ending on the Blu-ray, which is patently ridiculous, and that, oddly enough, my father remembers seeing on TV at some point, so I think some TV prints actually went out with this crazy alternate ending where a character survives a shotgun blast to the face.
And in fact, I did film another ending, which is terrible, but it exists.
Everyone in this movie, though, is damn good, from Pankow as the increasingly panicked partner who's getting in deeper and deeper, to Dafoe as the cold-blooded but not psychotic baddie. Even when he kills Petersen's partner, he tells him beforehand that it's not personal, it's business. He just doesn't want to get arrested. You can't blame him.
Buddy, you're in the wrong place at the wrong time.
And then, of course, there's Dean Stockwell as, without a doubt, the smartest guy in the flick, a well-connected lawyer that's got everyone owing him big time. Friedkin went into To Live and Die in LA wanting to top his French Connection car chase, and I'd say he pulled it off big time. In this scene, William Petersen and John Pankow's character decide to rip off some criminals in order to get a buy so that they can set up Willem Dafoe's character, but the guys that they rip off turn out to be undercover agents. So they're chased by the cops into oncoming LA traffic. They need to not be recognized so they won't get arrested, plus they're driving the wrong way down a one-way road. Arguably the best thing about it are the shots of John Pankow freaking out in the back seat as he's so terrified while William Petersen's character is clearly getting off on the crazy adrenaline rush that he's getting. Now, if you want to see To Live and Die in LA, it's actually a pretty easy movie to track down. There's a special features-laden Blu-ray out by Shout Factory, which is really worth tracking down because it's got a lot of great deleted scenes and that absolutely terrible alternate ending. You can also see it streaming on a lot of sites. If you haven't watched To Live and Die in LA, I have to say, you're missing one of the seminal movies of its era. Even if it was never considered seminal when it first came out, its cult keeps growing and there's a reason. It's one of the best thrillers of its time. Thank you for watching The Best Movie You Never Saw. If you like what you see, please subscribe to our channel, tell your friends who like this sort of content, and turn on the bell to receive notifications for all of our latest videos. We're an independent company, and we appreciate all of your support.